The golden age of the Umayyads, Al-Walid I in the zenith of Islamic civilization. The empire that had once bled from its wounds now began to breathe again. From the ashes of rebellion and the silence after civil war, the Umayyad Caliphate entered a new dawn, an age not of battle cries but of builders' hammers, of prayer rising above marble courtyards, of poets and scholars reviving the soul of a people. For years the caliphate had been defined by struggle. From the wars of succession to the long, bitter conflict between Damascus and Mecca, unity had come only at a heavy cost. But now, under a new generation of rulers, the Muslim world began to rediscover its rhythm, faith, art and ambition blending into something greater. At the center of this rebirth stood Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik, the son of the man who had rebuilt the empire from chaos. Where his father, al-Malik, had forged the structure, the institutions, the unity, the reforms, Al-Walid would breathe life into it. If al-Malik was the empire's architect, Al-Walid was its artist. Al-Walid himself was not the rugged field commander his forefathers had often been. His nature was more reserved, contemplative. He was a patron, a builder, and a visionary. He understood a profound truth, that true power was not just measured by armies or conquests, but by what a civilization leaves behind. He ascended the throne in 705 CE, at a time when the Muslim world stretched farther than ever before, from the frontiers of India to the mountains of Morocco. But Al-Walid's vision went beyond borders. He wanted not only an empire that commanded obedience, but a civilization that inspired admiration. And in that vision he succeeded. His reign, only 10 years long, would be remembered as one of the most prosperous and creative decades in early Islamic history. When Al-Walid took power, he inherited a stable and centralized state. The economy was sound, the coinage reformed, and the bureaucracy fully Arabized. But he understood something his predecessors did not. Lasting power is not built by conquest alone. It is built by culture. He was a man of contrasts, deeply pious yet ambitious, reserved yet visionary. While not known for fiery charisma, Al-Walid had a quiet conviction that resonated through his policies. One contemporary described him as a man who spoke little, but whose works spoke for him. His first and greatest work was one that would outlast dynasties, the Great Mosque of Damascus. For centuries before Islam, the site had been sacred ground. Once a Roman temple to Jupiter, later a Byzantine church dedicated to John the Baptist, it carried layers of faith and history. When Al-Walid ordered its transformation into a mosque, he did not erase the past, he built upon it. Al-Walid, driven by a desire to create a central, spectacular monument worthy of the unified faith and the vast empire, enacted one of the most significant architectural decisions in Islamic history. He purchased the Christian share of the site and promised to build a replacement church nearby. But the central structure would be transformed, not destroyed, but elevated into a mosque as a house of worship worthy of the one God, vast, luminous and eternal. Thousands of artisans came from across the empire, Greek mosaicists, Persian builders, Coptic craftsmen. The project was a symbol of the new world Islam was shaping, one that drew from every culture it had touched. When the mosque was completed, it was said that its beauty stunned all who saw it. Its walls shimmered with gold mosaics, depictions not of people but of gardens, rivers and celestial light. The courtyard's marble gleamed white beneath the Syrian sun, and the call to prayer echoed under vast domes that seemed to touch the heavens. Even centuries later, travelers would write in awe. The Andalusian scholar Ibn Jubayr called it a wonder of the world, while others claimed it had no equal in beauty or spirit. In those walls, one could see Al-Walid's dream, a faith confident enough to express itself in art, yet humble enough to glorify only the Creator. But Damascus was only the beginning. In Medina, the Prophet's city, Al-Walid turned his attention to the Masjid al-Nabawi. It had long been a place of prayer and pilgrimage, but now it would become one of the most magnificent sanctuaries in the world. Al-Walid spared no expense. Marble pillars were brought from Syria, mosaic tiles from Byzantium, and skilled craftsmen from Egypt and Persia. When the work was completed, the mosque's walls glowed with colored glass and gold. It was said that those who entered felt the tranquility of faith itself descend upon them. In Mecca, the Haram was expanded and beautified for the pilgrims who came from every corner of the empire. Roads were paved, wells dug, and rest stations built to ease their journey. The pilgrimage routes, stretching across deserts and mountains, became arteries of connection, carrying not only believers but ideas, languages, and culture. In Jerusalem, the Dome of the Rock, built by al-Malik, continued to shine like a jewel upon the horizon, reminding all who saw it that Islam was not merely a religion of conquest, but of continuity and creation. While the builders shaped cities, the generals shaped destiny. Under Al-Walid, the Umayyad armies reached their greatest extent, carrying Islam's banner farther than ever before. In the west, his governor Musa ibn Nusayr and his young general Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed the Strait of Gibraltar into Iberia. The story of Tariq, standing before his army after burning his ships, became legendary. "Behind you is the sea," he said, "and before you is the enemy. There is no escape but in victory." The Muslims triumphed. By 711 CE they had entered Hispania, capturing city after city, until the Visigothic kingdom crumbled. The new land, Al-Andalus, would become a center of learning and art for centuries to come. In the east, Muhammad ibn al-Qasim, a brilliant commander barely 17 years old, led his forces into Sindh in modern-day Pakistan. His campaigns brought Islam to South Asia, not as an invader's creed, but as a faith that would take root, flourish, and shape the subcontinent's destiny. Meanwhile, in Central Asia, the general Qutayba ibn Muslim advanced deep into Transoxiana, reaching the fabled cities of Samarkand and Bukhara. Under his leadership, the frontiers of Islam met the edges of the Chinese Empire, a meeting point of civilizations, trade, and knowledge. From the Pyrenees to the Indus, the empire now stretched across nearly 10 million square kilometers. But Al-Walid's genius lay in understanding that territory meant little without stability. So while his generals expanded, his administrators built roads, bridges, and post routes to bind the empire together. The economy flourished. Trade caravans crossed the deserts under the protection of the caliph's law. Gold dinars bearing Quranic inscriptions circulated from Damascus to the markets of Samarkand and Cordoba. The same language, Arabic, now connected scholars from North Africa to Persia. It was during this time that the caliphate began to feel truly global. Merchants brought silks from China, spices from India, and knowledge from the Hellenistic world. In return, Islam gave them structure, justice, and identity. In many ways, this was when the Islamic civilization began to find its voice, not just as a political empire, but as a cultural and spiritual force. Al-Walid himself remained humble and devout. He was not known for personal luxury, and many accounts describe him as a man who preferred prayer and simplicity to pomp. When told that the state treasury held surplus wealth, Al-Walid is said to have replied, "Spend it on the people, build roads, aid the poor, strengthen the frontiers." Under his command, the first organized hospitals were built in Damascus and other cities. Physicians were paid by the state, and treatment was free for all, Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Even the blind and disabled were provided stipends and care. It was, in essence, an early welfare system grounded in faith and compassion. This was Al-Walid's understanding of civilization, not marble alone, but mercy. Yet even golden ages cast long shadows. With prosperity came comfort, and with comfort came complacency. Damascus became a city of wealth, palaces of marble, fountains in courtyards, banquets under silk canopies. The simplicity of the early caliphs seemed to fade into memory. Voices like that of Hassan al-Basri rose in protest. The pious scholar warned, "The world has deceived you by its beauty and its false promises. Beware, for it smiles while it kills." He reminded rulers that the true strength of the Ummah lay not in its armies or its palaces, but in its justice and faith. Al-Walid listened. Though he could not undo the changes that came with prosperity, he sought balance, using wealth for public works and faith for guidance. He often said to his advisors, "We are not here to hoard wealth, but to leave behind what will benefit those who come after us." By the time of his death in 715 CE, Al-Walid had transformed the Umayyad Caliphate into a true empire of civilization. The frontiers were secure, the cities adorned, the roads safe, and the people prosperous. He left behind mosques that still stand today, and a vision of Islam that blended strength with beauty, faith with intellect. Historians often say that Al-Walid's decade marked the zenith of Umayyad power, the moment when the Muslim world stood at its most confident and creative. After him, the glory would continue briefly under his brother Suleiman, but the cracks would slowly begin to show. Power struggles, shifting loyalties, and growing resentment among non-Arab Muslims would eventually lead to the Umayyads' decline. But for that brief golden moment, the world witnessed what faith and discipline could achieve together, an empire united not only by the sword but by spirit. Centuries later, travelers still stand before the Great Mosque of Damascus and the Dome of the Rock, their arches bathed in golden light. They whisper the names of those who built them, men who turned faith into form and prayer into architecture. They see in those stones not just the ambition of kings, but the yearning of a civilization to glorify its creator. And in that yearning, Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik found immortality, not in conquests but in creation. The son of an empire builder, he became the builder of a civilization. From chaos to order, from battle to beauty, the Umayyads had shown the world that Islam was not merely a faith of conquest, but a faith of culture. And in the reign of Al-Walid, that faith reached its zenith, the golden age of the Umayyads.